partner program where we're partnering with landlords and a host of other community stakeholders to address the issue of homelessness. We've developed a data-driven intervention that educates landlords and property managers on the issue of homelessness in our community and invites them to be a part of the solution, helps kind of underscore what some of the challenges are that they might encounter as a landlord who's serving more vulnerable individuals in their housing. And it also highlights ways that they can benefit and incentives for landlords as well. And finally, and I'll say about that key partner program, we are currently recruiting landlords for the pilot of that program. And so I'll make sure that that information gets to you as well. If you know a landlord or are a landlord and would be interested in participating, we'd welcome that. Finally, we have a field education program that's just ripping and roaring. We have, in the last year, we placed 50 MSW students in Logan City. And others across the county as well, and 38 BSW students who were placed in Logan City-based agencies. And they're adding really critical capacity to those agencies. And just last year, we had 7 MSW students who were placed in Logan City schools, providing the majority of social work services in the district schools, given that the district doesn't currently employ graduate level social workers. Students are also making a big impact in agencies like CAPSA, Bear River Mental Health, Bear River Health Department, CRIC, Logan Regional Hospital, and a bunch of others. I've outlined a few ways that you might want to stay connected to the department, especially with what TCI's work is looking like, and the iSystem Institute, especially thinking about other emergency services or other entities that might benefit from trainings like GRIT or mind-body bridging trainings more broadly, and other ways that we can work with TCI to promote knowledge and solutions on social problems and issues in our community. But in the second part of my opening remarks here, Amy said, I will be wordy, I'll try to stay in my time limit. I want to pivot to a hat that maybe you're a little bit more familiar with me wearing, and that is to Refugee Services in Cache Valley. So many of our newest community members here in the Valley are Afghans, and they're known as humanitarian parolees. And these individuals came to Utah in early 2022. Currently, we have about 40 Afghan parolees who've arrived here in the Valley, some in families and some as individuals. They were in danger in Afghanistan after the U.S. withdrawal, and because of their support of the American presence there, and many of their families were unable to escape with them. They're, waiting for the news about whether they'll be able to reunite here in our community. And Logan City and other Cache Valley residents might see Afghan fathers out in the community sharing their Utah experiences over FaceTime or WhatsApp with their wives and children who are far away across the world. Over the weekend, there's a group of our newest Afghan neighbors who were attending the carnival near the event center. And a concerned mother was suspicious of their behavior, and she assumed they were filming children. And in an ill-thought-out response, she posted a video and still images of our newest neighbors to various community groups and TikTok. And in 48 short hours, it was shared over 600,000 times, and by many hundreds of people in our community. It's absolutely important that we be vigilant as a community to keep children safe, and it must be stated that this sort of misinformation is damaging to our Afghan neighbors and to our wider community. As elected officials in our community, you have a platform that can help steer public discourse, and let our discourse be one of welcome. Our newest neighbors deserve to be treated with dignity and respect and seen in the fullness of their humanity. We're lucky to have a growing number of new Americans in Cache Valley who are adding to the strength of our community. So I'll end with a statement of solidarity and support of our Afghan neighbors who are working and contributing to our community in meaningful ways, and who are learning what it's like to live in this new country and community. And this is a statement that also decries racism in all of its forms, whether overt or covert, unintentional or accidental. It's my hope that as a community, we take the time to learn about the incredible stories of resilience and strength among the refugee and immigrant community that's here, and that we are careful not to make assumptions and instead listen to learn. With that, I will lead us in the pledge. If everybody could stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Lucero. And just the other day, I was walking with my wife through the neighborhood, and I had been thinking about this recently about refugees in our community. And we were discussing what are some of the thoughts that probably go through their minds as they walk through our beautiful parks. And thinking that they don't enjoy those freedoms in the places where they come from. And we just stopped and kind of valued our resources and our freedoms that we enjoy here. So thank you for sharing that. Next in our agenda, we have the acceptance of the minutes for our previous meeting and the approval of our agenda for tonight. Any motions?
I would move acceptance of the minutes and of tonight's agenda.
I'll second.
It's being moved and seconded. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Just as a reminder, our regular meetings for our council meetings are the first and the third Tuesday of the month at 5:30. Our next meeting will be August 16th. And now is the time for anyone in the public who wishes to address the mayor or the council with questions and comments about items that are not in our agenda for tonight. So if you'd like to come up to the mic, please state your name and the city where you reside.
Hi, my name is Joshua Muller. I'm from Logan, the Ellis District. This is actually concerning the Ellis District. It doesn't seem that we have proper representation in the district. Our representative doesn't even come from that place. I'm actually kind of upset with what happened with a meeting that I missed out, and it was with the approval of what was happening on Second North and 800 West. I mean, I've been to all the meetings with that, and the approval, I missed that meeting, which I'm upset about, but I think that how the process was done was, I mean, you had people that wanted to say something about it, but they weren't able to because the first meeting was, they were able to take their comments, but then, at the opening statement, like what I'm doing here, they, the group that was doing that came in and they were part of the agenda, and so nobody was able to talk to them about that later on. It was kind of a shutout for one lady in particular that wanted to make a statement about it, and I believe that she had the opening ceremony that time. I don't have the dates, but I believe it was about 3 meetings ago. I think that the Ellis District is basically getting hosed right now with these development companies. I don't know, I mean, the Trio Group's putting in 971, units. And then you have the Meadows going in, that's already in on Second North. The influx of children, I mean, I've been in the Ellis School at the neighborhood meeting. It's a great school. I don't know where they're gonna put everybody, because that's a lot of people, a lot of, children from families and stuff. I don't think that the decisions are being made, with a whole lot of effort. I think that it's just they're being forced through, and there are agendas behind them. I don't attend the the zoning and planning meetings, because a lot of times I don't have the time. So, I don't know if anything that I'm going over right now has been discussed in those meetings, but I think that, yeah. Sorry, this is like my third time talking in front of public, so yeah, I just don't think that these decisions are being made in the best interest of the people. We have a, since the 2020 census came out, we have a homeowner occupancy of, I think it's right around 36%, where the national average is around 64%. We're way below that average. Our poverty rating is around 24%, 25%. The national average is, I think, just a little over 12%. We are failing in, addressing some serious issues of this city. I had one individual tell me, well, what about the college students? And the only thing I could think about with that, why do college students, why is it permissible for them to be living in poverty? They shouldn't be. They should be focused on going to school and not having to worry about their budgets.
I'm sorry, I don't know which development you're talking about. Are you talking about the one on 200 South and 10th West?
It would be before 10th West. The field behind the radio station was the trio.
Okay, 200 South and
Yeah.
800 West. Okay.
Oh, 200 South, I'm sorry.
Thank you for clarification.
So,
That was just a rezone.
yeah, it was a rezone, but the rezone, there were some council members that were
It didn't change
concerned.
how many units they could put there, so.
What's that?
It didn't change how many units they could put there.
Yeah, I know. Initially, they had stated it was around 971 units, and that wasn't before, that was the very first meeting with it. It just, it got pushed through. Just lost my train of thought, sorry.
Sorry about that.
All right, that's all, thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicole Bernard. I'm the Executive Secretary of the Bear River Local Homeless Council, and I'm just coming to provide an update. We had our meeting earlier today. Our council meets the first Tuesday of every month, and we are made up of multiple different service providers and members of stakeholder groups who come together to find ways, to reduce the effects of homelessness and solve homelessness in the Bear River region. So. We do what's called a service provider update, and that gives service providers who work with households experiencing homelessness the time to, give us data on the amount of people they've served that previous month, and just kind of letting us know what's going on with their agencies. So I'll briefly just review that, and then I'll be done. Thank you. So we'll start off with CAPSA. It's an organization that serves folks experiencing domestic violence and sexual assault. They do have an emergency shelter for people experiencing that type of trauma. And for the month of July, their shelter provided 445 nights of shelter. They served 42 clients overall, 4 men, 18 women, 20 children. And then there were 17 adults and 18 children that were a part of the new intake for that month. And then they did want to share a positive success story that they experienced this past month. And this is coming from the emergency shelter manager. And she says, "We've had an influx of young single parents, many of whom haven't had the best role models to learn healthy parenting skills, so they are nervous and feeling less than confident about parenting their children. Our children and youth services workers have done a phenomenal job of providing guidance both to children about emotional regulation and problem solving, and also to these parents who are unlearning the trauma they were exposed to and working towards providing healthier environments for their own kids and families." So that's wonderful that they're able to provide that support for people living in their emergency shelter. For their housing side, July of 2022, there are currently 23 adults and 41 children living in CAPSA-owned housing units. CAPSA paid $2,005.75 for hotel stays during the month of July. They spent $9,626.76 on miscellaneous needs. These can be for things like paying rent for a client who had a booth at like a hair salon in order for her to continue working. They also helped to pay someone for relocation. They helped with RV repairs, and just an early termination of a lease, childcare, and a title loan for a car. And then for their rental assistance, they've provided $14,681.50 in financial assistance for that. For Bear River Association of Governments, they lead a coordinated entry meeting every week on site at Bragg. Coordinated entry is a streamlined system that provides quick access to individuals and families seeking assistance through a coordinated referral and housing placement process. So at this meeting, representatives from different service providers like CAPSA, the Family Place, I'm sorry, not the Family Place, Bragg, Utah Families Feeding Families, For Helping Hearts, they come together and they review all of the clients and they prioritize them based on the results of the assessments that they go through at these locations. And then from there, they try to get them assigned to the best program that would fit their needs and get them housing most quickly. And so in July of 2022, there were 20 new households added to the list. 8 of these households were housed, and 12 of these households exited the list for other reasons, whether that was staying with friends or maybe they left the area or they just lost contact. The average number of households per week that were on the list is 43. And just for a reference, this number doubled from July 2020. There was only 20 households on the list in July 2020. And just from my speculation, I feel like COVID probably had a lot to do with that, people losing paychecks and experiencing homelessness that way. During the last week in July, 42 households were on this coordinated entry list. So they're currently homeless. 10 households have not been assigned to programs, and this is due to their inability to find housing before the program expiration date or the lack of funding in the assistance programs that Bragg has. But on a more positive note, over the last year, housing has been difficult to obtain, but during the last month or so, there has been an improvement in clients being able to secure housing, so that's positive. However, this might be difficult again when students come back for the school year, so that's why continued having access to affordable housing is very important. Utah Families Feeding Families is a grassroots nonprofit organization that helps families and individuals in poverty in our community. They provided $2,000 in hotel stays during the month of July for people in need of emergency shelter. For Helping Hearts is another grassroots organization doing the same type of things. They provided financial assistance for emergency shelter and hotel stays for 2 single adults and a single mom with 2 kids for up to 3 days this past month. And they also provided financial assistance for security deposit and first month's rent for a young pregnant couple. And they paid half of the security deposit for a single mom and her 3 kids. Just one more success story, so I'm not leaving it on like a bad note. This family, there was a family that was working with Bragg and Utah Families Feeding Families. This family had been separated from their children for a year and a half because of drug addiction and substance use. They have been through parenting classes and substance use rehabilitation programs. They've been working really hard. And part of the stipulation for them to get their kids back home, they had to find a home before they could have their kids come back. So they have been homeless for 7 months. They did have an eviction and a criminal record, so it was extremely difficult for them when they were looking for housing because a lot of times landlords require background checks and people are a bit hesitant to work with folks who maybe have made mistakes in the past. But despite that, there was a landlord, a private landlord, that said she believed in second chances. And so they just signed their lease last week. And so they have a home and they're gonna work and they'll probably get their kids back. And so that's awesome news. So thanks again for letting me address you. And if you have any questions or would like to be added to that email list, I know Amy Anderson has the contact information for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Frank Stewart. I live in the Adams neighborhood, and I'm a lucky member of the community to wear several different hats. This evening, the hat I'm wearing is with the Logan City School Board. As you know, we're just weeks away from school opening, and we wanted to let you know that as board members, we want to do a much better job of staying in touch, communicating well with you. And to that end, we've assigned each of us as a board member which month we're going to participate for city council meetings. And I drew August. The 16th, when you meet again, is back to school night for several of our schools. And so I thought I would just give a quick update. Clearly, we're not going to be without challenges as we start. If you've seen the Logan City track and the sports facilities, we are currently scheduled for the 8th, 9th, and 10th to lay cement, and that's if cement is available. On the 13th, we have the assigned group coming from Wyoming to hopefully put the track back down and make everything safe and ready. That does, however, preclude us from August 12th, when our first home game was to be scheduled for football. So that game will actually be played at Green Canyon High School. We appreciate their support to help us take care of that game. We are extremely excited for the Ellis community and the Ellis School to open and welcome their students and parents. We've already had parents' night over the last couple of weeks, and we're very much aware of the new developments that are coming into this area. We're working hard to see what our counts are going to be for preschool, kindergarten, and make sure that all of our students are safely crossing the railroad tracks, if that is the case, and utilizing corners, working with the city to do so. And then we're excited about the dual language immersion programs that will be starting at the Hillcrest School full-time. So we have Portuguese and Spanish that will begin. And the non-DLI students at the Hillcrest will be attending the Adams School this year. We're very excited to welcome them to the Adams School. Just for your information, the Adams Elementary has been receiving the #4 top-tiered scores for every elementary school here in Cache Valley. So we're very excited about the progress that our elementary schools all across the board are making. And excited when we start to open Logan High and get everything back to play. Again, we'll work hard to get the track ready to make sure it's safe. That's our #1 priority. And we know how that affects our soccer team as well, which had their first 5 matches scheduled to be at home, and we'll be moving those around as of tonight and Thursday. So we appreciate the support of the City Council and the Mayor for all that you do for Logan City Schools, and we're going to work hard to make sure we pay off with that investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Next on our agenda, we have mayor and staff reports.
Thank you very much. The first item is I have received notification from the Government Finance Officers Association. I'll just read this brief paragraph about an award that we have received. We are pleased to notify you that your annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2021 qualifies for GFOA's Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by a government and its management. And it's basically on making the information very accessible to the public, very easy to access, and we just want to give kudos to our finance department for their good work in doing that, and we appreciate their effort to be very transparent and accessible.
What is the organization that?
The Government Finance Officers Association. Government financing nerds, shall I say.
We have one that does as well with that title, right?
I know. So again, basically, just they want us to be transparent and provide the information in a way that is accessible to the public. So proud of them for that. The second item, we have a board appointment for ratification by the council for the Historic Preservation Board, and I'd like to ask Russ Price to stand up. He is the nominee, and you probably know him from serving on the Planning Commission before, but he has some great credentials, training as an architect. He's also worked on historic preservation projects, and he has agreed to serve on that board, which again meets on an as-needed basis if the council chooses to ratify that appointment.
I think I just spoke on his behalf a short time ago, but he still is.
He's
worthy.
on another board. Is that Civil Service Board? Is that the one? So
I was just wondering if I was deja vu.
it meets a couple of times a year. He's very cooperative about assisting, and he's good at process.
Not everybody says that about you.
Well, I've known Russ for a long time, and I've had many interactions with him, and would wholeheartedly support ratification of Russ.
I'll second.
So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Price, for all your service to our city and our community.
And Barbara agreed you could do this?
I don't know if she does. Yeah, she was fine with it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Mayor?
Nope, that's all.
All right. Any council business that needs to be discussed this moment?
Not for me.
All right, next on our agenda, we have our action items for tonight. First, we have Resolution 22-32, presented by Steve Crosby from the Light and Power Department. Steve, here.
Yes, he is.
I didn't know I was supposed to maybe present, but I will anyway. Just to give you a little background, it's been several years since we've had an increase in the connection fees associated with light and power. We've tried to keep the costs down, but as the area has taken off in growth, I guess as the country's taken off in growth, materials is getting harder to get, and with that the price of it continues to rise. I put together a comparison between 2018 and 2022. I left a few of the really expensive items out because I'm hoping that those prices of transformers is going to come down on the residential side. A little background, I think it was early February or March, we had an opportunity to hijack an entire truckload of residential transformers.
Be careful about the terminology there. We purchased an entire truckload.
Thanks to the finance department. It was a load of transformers that was going to be surplus stock to one of the suppliers, and they were cooperative in letting us take the entire truckload. It wasn't a true hijacking, but we were able to secure that truckload, and with Rich and his department, we took on quite a big inventory of transformers, close to $1 million of transformers, I believe, and so we didn't have to build the residential side of transformers into this commercial and residential connection fee. We have enough residential transformers that if we're careful in our planning and our layouts, that we should be able to weather the storm through till next summer. And so we don't really want to build that into the price of what it's costing. What we do have is we have an increase in the other materials, the conductor, the cross arms, the poles, the conduits, all of those type of things. And so we did an average of what those cost comparisons was. On a residential level, it increased at about 40%, but on the commercial side and industrial side, we do have to build those transformer costs into it. We didn't base it on the new quotes that we just got, which are pretty high. We based it on our last purchases. And if you average the cost of those materials, that cost has increased 77%. And as careful as we are in the salvage and reuse of other materials, if we end up relocating lines and the materials is still good enough to use, we reuse it in other locations. But we still need to increase those connection fees. It shouldn't be passed on to the residents that have been here. It should go to the growth. The growth should have to pay for those things. And so with that being said, that's what our proposal is. I think that's what resolution, I forget the number on it.
2232.
That's what it addresses, is that across the board 60%. We wanted to use a percentage because this is such an up and down thing that we're facing right now. For instance, let me give you a quote we just ordered today. We had to order 8 additional commercial transformers. The quote for those was $403,000 for 8 transformers. That's with no guarantee that it's $403,000. It's the final cost will be when they're manufactured and delivered, and that delivery is 60 months from now, so over a year out. And so we did hedge even the commercial side. We feel we're setting real good. The reason we had to reorder these, they would have been here in November or December of this year. The manufacturer canceled to the supplier that particular order and said, we're not going to sell to these suppliers anymore. We're going to only go with these other suppliers. They canceled that order to us, and we had to reorder. We had to rebid it, which was really a cost they gave us of about a $37,000 increase, but even that's not a fixed cost. So that's what we're faced with right now in the power industry. Another thing, just to give people a little bit of an update on the new Landis and Gear meters that we're installing throughout the city. They're a real smart meter. We know when your power's out before you do. It actually sends the signal to SOC that it's lost power. We know where the outage is. We hope that's going to increase our abilities to respond to these outages and know what's wrong. They also tell us what the peak demand and usage is. Now these new apartment complexes and things that are getting built, they're using a lot more power than what we estimated they would use. People are not putting their summer thermostats at 78 degrees. That's where they should be. Winter, they should be 68 degrees. We need to become more energy conscious about the usage that we're doing. Some apartments this last month used 2,000 kilowatt hours. My own home, I use 700. So we do need to get that message out. But any questions on any of this?
I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but when I looked at it, it looked like the percentages were significant in the increase. Could we soften the blow to the users or to the consumers by having a lesser increase but more frequent instead of 30 or 50 or whatever it is?
Well, the only thing is that is what it's costing, and it's not the increase to the current customers, it's the increase to the new developers. Okay?
So these are connection fees. These aren't rates. We are doing a rate study because our electrical rates citywide haven't increased for a while, and we know, rates are they need to go up, but we're doing a study to determine how much, because we try and match that But this is just connection fees, so new projects, it's what it costs, and we really can't subsidize it or we'll be in trouble.
I wished we could. Rates, yes, that's a rate
Okay,
study.
that answers my question. I appreciate that. And you said we did a rate study outside.
We're in the process of
Okay.
doing a rate study for just general rates.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
So just one, we're going to need to continue this item until next time we hold a public hearing. It was our fault, we didn't notice this as a public hearing, but any fee change has to have a public
Oh,
hearing.
okay.
So we apologize. Technicality, but we do need that part to happen.
So we're continuing to a specific date or
And next council.
Next.
We probably need a motion from council members to do that.
August 6th?
I think
We
we
need a
should make,
motion?
yeah, I think we should make Steve come back and do it all.
So I
Full
move,
thing.
Thank you, Steve.
Sorry, Steve.
I move postponement, what's the word I want? Continuance of resolution 22-32 to our meeting on August 16th
I'll second, but with the rates,
for a public hearing.
I'll second that, but with the rates going up that they are, will he have new numbers too?
We will, I'm sure.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
And just for clarification, there was no hijacking of truckloads.
Hey, with the electrical prices, it's a market in which we've never experienced. They won't tell you the price anymore until you buy it. So some of these things have a lead time of 1.5 years, 2 years, but they won't tell you the price. And then once it comes out, they'll tell you the price, and you can either take it or leave it. That's the environment we're in. That'll change before too long.
Yeah, the residential transformers right now are quoting 102 weeks.
Wow. So I think hijacking is the right word.
2 weeks, 2 years.
2 years.
It's the manufacturers.
Next action item is a public hearing for Resolution 22-34, presented by Emily Alec, our coordinator for the RESAB.
Did you want a recap of
That'd be good.
the incentive changes? Okay, I pulled up my presentation from,
No floods today?
no, I have dry sheets today too, so it's very helpful for me, actually.
Congratulations.
Thanks. So essentially, these are just updates Yeah, I mean, it shifts it from something that's perhaps less clean or, you know, to something that has the potential to be more clean in the future.
I think it's great. I would move acceptance of resolution 22-34.
Second.
It's being moved and seconded. Any additional comment?
Great opportunity for our citizens to take advantage of it.
Yeah, we encourage everyone that has been on the fence, considering some of these upgrades or changes, to look more into it. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution 22-34 passes. Next on our agenda is action item, it's a public hearing for Resolution 22-29 presented by our Director of Community Development, Mike DeSimone.
Greetings. This is just a request to amend our existing fee schedule to include a fee for annexations. So that's it in a nutshell. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
It's basically to cover the out-of-pocket costs, not staff time costs, but there's a lot of noticing costs that are required by law, so.
And that was due because of the change of the law, right? Requiring ward notification?
No, the changes for that elements have been in place for a couple of years now. We just never charge a fee for annexations. So it's getting to the point where it's just, it's really expensive.
Costs. Yeah.
All right. Any comments or questions for?
No, pretty straightforward.
This is a public hearing, so if you'd like to comment on this item, please come up to the mic and state your name.
Timid group tonight.
Yeah,
That's all right.
you scared them off, Tom.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Bring it back to the council. Any last comments or questions?
I'll move acceptance of resolution 2229.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Resolution 22-29 passes. Next on our agenda is a public hearing for ordinance 22-17, also presented by Mr. DeSimone.
Greetings. This is an amendment to Logan Municipal Code to, and this is a result of changes in state law to recognize licensing reciprocity between jurisdictions. So if you're going to run a mobile food truck up in Logan, you're licensed in Smithfield, you don't need to get a separate business license for us, and it's vice versa. So,
Do you feel this is a good change?
yeah, I mean, we have to, it's state law, so.
You still have an opinion, so.
Well, yeah, doesn't matter.
Any questions or
No,
any other questions?
Just a,
covered it well.
I suppose, silly question, but if the other municipality has a vastly different ordinance or, you know, regulations, does that cause a problem?
For us, no. No, we still require minimum health inspections and then fire inspections.
Okay.
So those have to be shown that they've got that taken care of.
This is a public hearing, so if you'd like to comment on this item on the agenda, please come up to the mic and state your name. Bring it back to the council. Any last questions or comments?
I'm surprised we do not have food trucks in the parking lot tonight. That would have been nice.
Here?
Yeah, in celebration of the new ordinance.
The new ordinance.
I've been thoughtful of them to bring snacks, but, well, next time.
I'll move acceptance of ordinance 22-17.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ordinance 22-17 passes.
Our state legislature did a good job on that.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Next on our agenda is a public hearing for ordinance 22-16, presented by our planner, Russ Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. Just a couple questions. Last time about density, I'll go over those really quick. I'll be as brief as possible. This is a rezone for Villa 364. It's South Main Street. It's 364.
I am Dr. Gail Yost. I live 1/2 block north on First East of this, and a number of years ago, one of my kids, he was a foster kid, and he's now in his late 30s, worked there while he went to school. And he said it was then running down, and that was at least 16 years ago. So I just wanted to let you know that we have heard nothing in the neighborhood about any negative reaction to this. In fact, it might be a much more positive reaction because it's getting people housed. And we won't see these people having trouble with not just housing, but any of the social things that need to happen for people to retain housing, to get jobs, to find their way back to the common society if they've been homeless for a while. And this is affordable for a lot of them. And I think knowing what I heard at the end of the meeting 2 weeks ago, where he said, you know, he wanted to do this, so maybe even the commercial would be like a laundromat. Instead of the big laundromat for the motel, it would be a laundromat for the people to use regular equipment. Because they won't have room in their own spaces. I think this would be an excellent place for people who are trying to transition back into our community. And so I'm for it as a neighbor, but also as a professional.
Thank you, Dr. Yost.
My name is Debbie Bruff, and I'm from Logan. I just am in support of this. A few years ago, was helping a family member try to find affordable housing for several months here in Utah, looking for something kind of like this. It just was a really hard, difficult process to find anything available, so I think we need whatever we can. On the other side, I don't really understand the zoning. I hope you all do. And just the ramifications of the future. If they decided to tear this down and build something else, is that still a zone that would be appropriate in that spot? So.
Thank you.
Hi, Josh Muller from Logan. I don't find that this TC1 is adequate for this. At any time, if, you know, there's no guarantees to it at any time somebody else purchasing this land and then building, you know, another high-density apartment there, you know, that best fits their needs and their, you know, their financial wants. I'm all for affordable housing. However, I think we totally missed that whole point with having these developers do rentals. Affordable housing is not rentals. I think that we do need a homeless shelter. I mean, growing up here, most of the homeless problems were swept under the rug, you know, with a bus ticket to Ogden. And there was, you know, jokes about that on Main Street. I've actually partied in that motel quite a few times back in the day. I think putting it on Main Street is a terrible idea. I mean, are there going to be children that are, you know, on the premises? Main Street is seriously dangerous at this point. It's just a constant flow until, you know, 8 o'clock in the evening when it finally starts to let up. If they're minors, children, you know, at that location, who's to guarantee, you know, that they don't end up in the road? The food pantry is just right across the street from there. I think it's just a really bad location to do something like that. There's no guarantees that, you know, somebody will do whatever they want with it. So I don't think it's a good idea.
Thank you, Josh.
Hello again, Nicole Bernard. I live in Logan. I do hear what the gentleman was saying about the location being off of busy Main Street. However, something to consider is when looking at resources that are available for households that are experiencing homelessness, there is significantly greater amount of resources available for households that have children, whether that be programs like TANF that you can qualify for at Bragg. You have to have a child to qualify for that program. Or, there's a lot of housing available through CAPSA that can accommodate like 2 or 3 bedrooms that can accommodate families with kids. But really when it comes to single individuals that are living on one income, there's really not anything available. It's extremely difficult. Just my sister and her boyfriend moved back in state just a few weeks ago, and they're 22 years old, they were looking for a place to rent. They found a 1-bedroom for like $1,200. So this is a huge need. A lot of the folks, like I mentioned earlier when I was giving the service provider updates, a lot of folks have made mistakes in the past. They've gone through some struggles. Maybe they have a criminal background. They need a second chance. They need support. They need an opportunity to prove that they've learned from their mistakes and they're willing to get back on their feet. And I think having housing like this is just the thing that they would need. And again, we need more resources for single individual households who are living on one income, particularly now with just the inflation and the cost of gas and food. This is something that's extremely needed, more so for single individuals and maybe a household of 2. I don't imagine these units being used for folks with children, just because of, like I mentioned, there's more resources available in our community for households with children. And so again, I think this is a necessity, and I would hope that we move forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Lucas Martin, and I live here in Logan. I also am in favor of the rezoning. My understanding is that there's ways for the city to address the concerns that were raised about the property being changed in the future. And so that's something that sounds like it's well within your ability to, at a future date, to change the zoning again to keep that the density issue from occurring. In the context of what it does now or what it has the potential to do, as was previously mentioned, we don't have as many resources. This is one of the few places that really has been a truly godsend for folks coming out of CAPSA, many difficult situations, even just evictions, people, landlords, sited properties out underneath them. There is new housing that's being built, but not many at this price point, quite frankly. And so as far as the impact and immediate contribution for households, it is quite significant. Likewise, I think it's also beneficial for the city financially. Compared to the Econo Lodge, I suspect if you've got a housing unit this size with every unit full, that the tax revenues will actually be higher than what the property was doing previously. And as was pointed out, a property that's in good repair and occupied, it's going to be better for residents as a whole. The location of it across the street from Food Pantry, frankly, I see as a positive thing, as well as along the bus routes. So that immediate access to resources helps people from having to drive. They can actually utilize the systems that the city's put in place to be walkable and to gain access to those things. So there's a lot of benefit here for the community, for the residents in the area, and for the new residents who'd be moving in to be able to take advantage of that.
Super good.
Thank you, Josh. Lucas, right?
Lucas.
Yeah.
Hi, Jess Lucero, citizen of Logan. I just wanted to say I wholeheartedly support this rezone. 2 things I'll mention. One, I think Gail already mentioned, is that this is a net improvement on what was there before, in terms of the improvements that's been made to the property. The facade, it looks better and it is better. And then the other thing that I mentioned is, functionally, to the outsider, nothing much will change because they're able to use the lowers as 30 days. But homelessness is a trauma, and this is a no barrier housing opportunity for individuals. And what will change internally for folks who are accessing this housing is they don't have to pick up and move every 30 days to a new unit. So it makes an enormous difference for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Russ, what's the density for commercial, for like housing? Remind me.
30 units per acre for the commercial zone.
Okay. So it's not that much of a difference.
30 to 70.
Yeah, they could still do 30.
Correct. The upper floors is about 24 units per acre, so they're under the COM density as currently configured.
Right.
And then it would be 48 units per acre if both floors were converted.
Okay. Thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the limitations that the property faces if they ever wanted to do more than what's there is parking, right?
Yes, if additional development occurs, parking would be reviewed. Would have to be possibly acquired nearby.
Difficult. Okay.
Last opportunity. All right, I'll bring it back to the council.
I have a question. I'm strongly in support of the social value, as has been mentioned by a number of people, and I think we ought to do it. But the concern of the spot zoning and the potential for the agent, the owner, to just sell it and turn it over to something else always exists. So I'm wondering if we could do a covenant that somehow restricts so that we get the benefit. The problem we have is projects fall between two zones. They don't actually fit this shoe, they don't fit this shoe. So I'm wondering if we could do something that says there's a restriction on doing X, Y, Z that would,
So if you wanted to do a restricted covenant, that would have to be something that was voluntarily offered by the applicant and proposed. I don't know if that's on the table or been discussed, but it'd have to be voluntarily offered by the applicant.
We can't require it.
Yeah, the applicant said that they would be more than happy to change it back when the project was done. But that's a verbal agreement, not a written agreement.
I'm just wondering if other members of the council have the same concern. If they don't, then that's...
I just don't see anybody being able to do anything with this piece of property that's going to be different. Yeah, it's just not big enough to do anything with. The parking's going to eat it all up. So I'm all for it. So I just don't see that big of a difference between that and the commercial zone. So.
And I think ultimately right now, I think Dr. Lucero had a good point. It's not, the usage of the space is going to just allow for people to stay there for more than the 30 days. So the usage itself is not going to be an issue. And I think if we have concerns down the road that it looks like there might be grumblings of something like this changing, there's always the opportunity to zone it to commercial.
Isn't it too late at that point then? If it's a TC1 zone and somebody sells it,
right? If they sell it,
then it's too late.
If a project, if they bring a project.
You have to, they would have to submit a new project.
Yeah, a new project would need to be submitted, a complete application and the fee paid.
But again, if we aren't aware of that and they submit the project, then they are entitled to,
That's what I'm saying. And then we said,
saying.
well, gee whiz, how did we not know that?
Acre downtown.
I mean, again, it's a block from the TC.
I know
I mean,
that.
we're not talking about plopping this in the middle.
I'm trying to address what
I
heard Jeannie's concern on this thing. So I'm not going to fall on my sword over this.
I move for acceptance of ordinance 22-16.
second that.
been moved and seconded. Any last comments? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ordinance 22-16 passes.
I just felt I had to raise that question.
No.
Jeannie had a valid.
Jeannie had a valid
It is a valid
concern.
concern.
We can't formally ask them to change it back, but we could ask them nicely. And I think they would do it, so, yeah.
If you're going to sell it, come talk to us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Is it, am I assuming correctly?
Yeah, there's always, in the developer world, there's always what's the highest and best use of the property, and currently this is it.
Yeah.
And, there's sustainability suggests it's so economically devastating to take a building like that down. The expense of it would be millions and millions of dollars just to get back to dirt. And so economically, it's not really feasible.
Well, I compliment you for what I understand it's doing and, the good things I've heard about. So.
Okay.
Thank you, and I think, once again, Logan is leading, providing a service for more than just Logan, correct?
Well, once you live there, you are in Logan, but again, I think we have more affordable housing certainly than any other community by a large percentage. I don't know what, but.
And you're all welcome to go tour it if you'd like to go see, right? They can come and see the project and.
Can I say one? I know it's close, but can I say something really quick?
I'll allow.
It's up to the chair. It's up to the chair.
Just really quick, I think what it's done for the state of Utah has been amazing. Logan was really kind of the focus point when Wayne Niederhauser from the governor's office came and was trying to find a solution for homelessness. And he toured the property and went back and has made it really kind of the flagship for the whole state. And whenever it's brought up at the governor's office, it's brought up about what Logan is doing. And the thing that made it so successful was the collaboration with all the service providers and a private real estate owner, which is really rare. Usually it's a nonprofit trying to push into the service providers, assistance and things like that. So this was really kind of a unique thing. And so state legislature passed a $55 million funding for this kind of particular project, and the guidelines that they put on it really mirror what has happened at this property. And so I think it's something that the whole community should be proud of, especially the service providers and what they've been able to do with it, because it's now become really kind of a flagship of something that can be modeled successfully, because it's so difficult, the difficulty financially to provide housing for this clientele is just, it's astronomical. If you think of trying to do a project ground up and they're hitting, I think, $270,000 a unit. And so these rural communities like central Utah and southern Utah will ask for $1 million of funding and they get a fourplex. And it just doesn't do much to help the LHCs in the community. So I commend Logan and the service providers for really making it happen, because that's what made it successful. Thank you.
Would you please?
We know your name. Could you just give your name for the record?
Yeah, sorry, Keith Warburton, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Next action item is a public hearing for Resolution 22-33, presented by Richard Anderson.
Can we, just for informational purposes, so everybody's aware, and particularly for the property owner, when we change zoning, when we change uses, it does change utility usage as well. So just so, I don't think you heard it, but.
Actually,
I think they're aware of it.
Are they, hopefully there are.
Yeah, there's been email correspondence back and forth about
There
it.
has been
the change in
some.
utility billing with
It will
the
change
change.
your
Yes.
utilities and again. It changed it once, it'll change it again.
Right.
So just be aware.
And then we will update our business licensing as well.
Okay, great. But just, sometimes when you change usage, even though it was used as one thing, now it's used as another, it does change how things
Are
work.
there impact fees that go along with that?
just monthly utility bills. We allocate, or we charge utility bills based on a unit. We can define a residential unit. We can't necessarily define a commercial unit, so there are differences in how that happens. And it was a kind of a point of concern not terribly long ago when half of the building was commercial, half of it was residential. Now it's all residential, so we charge as residential. It's not a huge deal, but to some people it is.
Right, thank you.
Okay. Let me quickly go through this. A request to appropriate $500 for a youth sports program was a donation received. I believe it was for uniforms, but I may be wrong on that. What was it? Banners, okay. $560 toward the cruise in. These were funds that were donated way back in, I think, 2020. We're now using those, and so we're appropriating those within the fund where those funds will be used, transferring those from our donation fund, $560. $10,000 for a grant that the library received to purchase books. $128,021 population split RAPS tax. These will be used for several different parks and recreation services. You can see there on the agenda. All of these are also RAPs. $140,000 for the Willow Park Sports Complex, $209,000 for Second South Woodruff Neighborhood Park, $50,000 for the Logan River Bridge at Trapper Trail.
And that's just the design, that's not building the bridge, that's just the
That
design.
was a pretty inexpensive
Just
bridge.
shock.
Yeah.
Just shock.
I know, unfortunately, the bridge will be a lot more than that.
26,000, these are now not RAPs, but $26,500 for a State of Utah grant for mental wellness in our fire department. $8,600 for donated funds received at the golf course, which will be used for scorecards and advertising on the scorecards. $85,000 state task force grant the police department receive these funds each year, or almost every year. $15,000 for the State of Utah grant to purchase emergency medical supplies. $4,000 for a police department grant for asset forfeiture, and lastly but not leastly, $40,000 for a Cigna health and wellness grant. We do get this grant each year as part of our health and wellness program.
Any comments or questions from the council?
A public hearing.
Good appropriations.
This is a public hearing. If you'd like to comment on this item on the agenda, please come to the mic, state your name and the city where you reside. Looks like they went quiet again.
They're timid.
They're timid again.
Yeah,
It was Richard. You scared him off.
he scared them off.
He's super scary.
Back to the council, any comments, questions?
I'll move acceptance of Resolution 2233. It's always nice to receive money,
Yes.
and Richard knows how to spend it, and that's good.
Mostly grant money, and
Grant money.
that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So they're already, like I say, specifically designated for a certain use, and we don't
Allocated.
spend them until we receive them.
I will second your motion, Tom.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution 22-33 passes. Our last action item is Resolution 22-31, also by Richard.
We discussed this at the last council meeting. This is, we have currently appropriated $3.8 million for a portion of the water tank project. We're requesting now to move that. This is part of the ARPA grant, to move that instead to be used for the east-west sewer line, which will be more timely, and hopefully we can accomplish it and use the funds appropriately within the time frame that the federal government has established. So request to change the designation from the water tank to the east-west sewer line.
And since we can see COVID and sewage, it actually applies better to the sewer project,
Super
right?
appropriate. If any of it's appropriate, it's super appropriate.
What does the guideline say? When does it need to be
It has to be fully spent by December 31st of 2026. However, it has to be, for our purposes, we have to have it designed and bid out and accepted a bid and have some sort of progress on it by December 31st of 2024. And so in government terms, we're pushing it. We got to hurry.
And this is not a single east-west sewer line. This is a series.
No, it's on 200 North going from Main Street going west, and then it's on 400 North going east. Those are two of the oldest sections of the city. They have ongoing problems. So, but again, we figure that project covers a wide swath of the city, and so again, it has some equity and fairness issues, and it's a project that really needs to be done. We're trying to focus on infrastructure because we'll be paying for this for the next 50 years, so at least someone should be using the infrastructure for the next 50 years.
The anticipation is as well, just so we can kind of be prepared. Once we have this designed and we have it bid, it's very likely we'll want to add city resources toward this project in addition to the federal, simply to find a proper cutoff where we stop. And so we don't know what that point is. It could be that we're only able to accomplish the west part of the east-west. It could be we only do a portion of it. So just so we're prepared, we anticipate bringing forward a request to appropriate resources. This was on our capital plan for, I think, 2024 or 2025. We're moving it up a little bit.
Mayor, you said equity, to address equity and something else. What do you mean by that?
Well, again, part of the guidelines want you to be, provide equity in your city. And because this one really goes all the way across town, it covers a lot of neighborhoods. We just seem like a good project that way as well.
Racial, economic, social, religious.
There's some specific language in the federal grant guidelines that want you to address that issue. So it seemed like a good way to, again, affect a wide, diverse swath of our population.
It is a requirement of the federal spending that we do consider equity. I mean, the sewer project is pretty equitable.
I accept all of that.
I had a favorite book for my kids. It was called Everybody Poops. So
I accept all of that except religious. Everybody lives everywhere.
It could be. You never know.
This is a public hearing. If you'd like to comment on this item on the agenda, please come up to the mic and state your name and the city where you reside. Not so fast.
Fine use.
All right, I'll bring it back to the council. Any last questions or comments?
I move for approval of resolution 22-31.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposing? Resolution 22-31 passes. That is the last of our action items. Our only workshop item for tonight is Resolution 22-35, also by Richard.
Request to appropriate $11,269 of funds received from Mayor Daines, as promised as part of her donating any raise she received this year toward the public arts program. Request to appropriate $183,792 from funds received from the sale of park property, to use that sale of park property, those funds, toward the design of 3 new parks, as we promised. 1900 West Dog Park, the 200 South Woodruff Park, and the Foothill Nature Park. This is toward the design only, unfortunately. The construction will happen later. Request to appropriate $75,770 received from the Parks and Recreation Department from the state of Utah for after-school programs. Again, we receive most of these multiple years in a row. Request to appropriate $4,363 for reimbursements received from the Cruise and for Police and Public Works, and $14,300 of donated funds received by the police department to purchase investigative equipment. That's all.
What is investigative equipment?
It's top secret.
Well, we're going to investigate and find out.
It's software to assist us in retrieving data.
Yeah, it's police super secret software.
Okay, got it. I was just curious. I thought it was interesting.
And if you're wondering about the park property, that was the Garth Gardens piece. They need that little piece to do the, what started out as L59 is now transitioned to the townhomes and then the apartments. So we pledged to spend that on other park projects, and
That's good. Thanks for the
we are
explanation.
Yeah.
doing that. So
That's great.
again,
So will this, I guess we're not at that point, but will the same firm be designing all 3 parks, or?
no, we bid those out typically. We have, overall master plans for the Foothill and the 200 South Woodruff Park, and we've had conversations with the neighborhood on both of those, so we had a lot of input. Again, kind of a high-level concept plan. This will move it to the next stage, which is more construction drawing designs, correct?
Last comments on this item? All right,
Nicely done.
that's it for our workshop items. Any last considerations?
Fine job conducting.
Yes.
I move adjournment.
All 10 minutes behind schedule.
Well, the meeting is adjourned.
I'll second.
Thank you, everyone.